Hi everybody. The first part of this is pretty much a follow-up to my last video. And, well, I got a very nastily worded PM, and they said basically, well, there was a whole bunch of stuff in there, and they weren't somebody, I don't think, that watches my content, because they really didn't have it all, they didn't even, they were jumbling up all of the feminisms together and accusing me of all of them and that sort of stuff. So I don't think they were really keyed into, you know, where I'm coming from, my angle on all this stuff. But in any event, they were talking about the last video I uploaded, and they were flipping out, and they say, well, clearly you don't care about the minors, the children, and then they said, or you think it's okay for a 14-year-old girl to be working in a brothel. So the first part of this is addressing that, basically. And I realize, yeah, I know, when I read through these articles, and well, there's mentions of minors being found all the time. And as you saw in that video, I don't even really pause on it. I'm like, oh boy, they found minors. Oh my goodness. And I continue on with the thing. And I know that people think that, I knew from a long time ago. I've been saying since I got here, yeah, I guess this means that I support, child sex trafficking. Sure, I'm all for it. Because that's how it comes off. Like, I don't care about that. Of course, that's not true. I do care about that. And for people to think that I should be focusing my time or my focus, should be focusing my focus on the children, it's like, no, I'm focusing on the fact that grown women aren't children. So they shouldn't be together, lumped together. One of the first things that started to tip me off or started to open my eyes was when I would read women and children lumped together all the time in these publications, in this rhetoric. Women and children especially are vulnerable. Women and children especially are victimized. Women and children especially are trafficked, forced into prostitution against their will. Women and children, women and children. And, well, the reaction to anybody reading that stuff should be, women aren't children. Sure, maybe maybe they might not have as many rights or as many whatevers as men do, depending on what country, what society, what culture they're in. They might be treated like children, but they're not children. So when somebody comes out and says, you're not talking about the children enough, that means you don't care, I just, okay, fine, then assume that I don't care about the children. If we weren't wasting so much time, money, and effort on controlling adult women, maybe we could actually do something for the children. Or heck, maybe those fully grown adult women that we're rounding up with the children would be able to themselves help the children. So that's the follow-up part, the direct follow-up part, and the rest of what I'm going to say is sort of just like a, a long ramble about some other thoughts that go along with that. So I'll start by just saying that, in general, we don't consider children, I mean we, as in like the planet, we don't generally consider children able to make a rational choice. I understand that what is considered a rational choice differs from culture to culture. In some cultures, a child's choice to stay home and play instead of going to work in the brick factory is considered irrational. In other cultures, it is considered entirely rational. And I'm not going to get into the issues of where should the age of consent be. We all know that a 6-year-old is a lot different than a 16-year-old. And we know that a 16-year-old is a lot different than a 26-year-old. We know this. And I'm going to leave it to the children's rights activists to hash out what rights a 6-year-old should have, what rights a 12-year-old should have, what rights a 16-year-old should have, for simplicity's sake. So let's just narrow that down to there's children and adults, and we generally, in this world, consider children unable to make a rational choice. So let's start there. We don't consider children able to make a rational choice. Who else don't we consider able to make a rational choice? We will restrict the choices for children, brain-damaged people, the mentally retarded, the mentally ill in severe cases, for the retarded and the ill, the inebriated, and those under extreme duress. Those are the conditions under which we consider a person unable to make a rational choice. Now let's consider these women in these brothels. We were told that all of them were forced. That's the fifth quality, the under extreme duress. So we're told that they were not making a rational choice. This wasn't their choice. If they had had the time and were able to make a choice rationally, this would not have been it. They were forced. Now, I'm out here, screaming, have been screaming for months about how, yeah, it can be a choice. Yeah, it can be an absolutely rational choice. And how dare you? And can you prove that they were forced? This, that, and the other thing. The answer to that most of the time from the rescue industry is, well, these people are programmed to lie. So you can't trust what they say. Even if they tell you they're not forced, well, they probably were. If you get past that layer of propaganda and bullshit, you get to the part where you're told that, well, they might not have been forced. It's not like they had a gun to their head. But it was this sort of, this limitation of choices, where it's not like they're physically forced, but they are de facto forced. If they had all the choices in the world, that's not what they would have chosen. It's based on this, I guess, this sort of thing where, okay, let's say somebody had every choice in the world, and if you ask them to make a rational choice out of every choice in the world, whichever one they chose is therefore the most rational, is the rational choice. And it's like, okay, so then if they don't have that choice available to them as one of their choices, apparently we're just okay with people running roughshod and saying, okay, none of those are rational choices, you can't make any of them, or that choice that was the best one for you out of those limited choices, no, we're not letting that happen. We've deemed it irrational. And that's what I meant by improper sexual choice, by the way. The rest of the world considers it an irrational choice. They think that we wouldn't choose it if we had our druthers. And, I said something earlier about how, the world over, we pretty much understand that women are not children. But in certain societies, certain cultures, we might understand that women are treated like children, but that they are not children. And that leads me into a little bit on why I'm so pissed off at social construction, and where the social constructionist rhetoric becomes a concern. Basically, what we're being told, what I read again and again and again, is women in these countries, women in these situations, women in these cultures are treated like children. Therefore, they've been socially constructed into de facto children. Therefore, we must treat them like children. At that point, some of the language, some of the rhetoric turns into this sort of, white knighting savior stuff of, well, we'll rescue these poor, unfortunate women who are convinced that they are children, and we will, gently introduce them to adulthood or not being treated like children or something. The basic thing is that, oh, we don't want to take these childlike women and just throw them into the world, just open up a world of rights to them, open up a world of, being considered adult because, well, they're still like children and they're not fully developed enough to be able to make those rational choices. We have to help them along with the rest of the growing up that they have to do. And, it becomes, it's like I have to laugh because I think that's what we call paternalism. Is it not? Paternalistic? Yes. Yes, it is. Now, this person is too much of a child to figure it out for their own. We have to restrict choices for them or tell them what choice to make. And like I said before, there's a big difference between a 6-year-old and a 26-year-old. And there's a difference between even a 6-year-old and a 26-year-old who's been treated like a 6-year-old. At some point along those 26 years, probably around year 10 or 11 or 12, that person realizes that they're being treated like a child. And they're able to conceptualize what they would do if they could, if they had their druthers. And they make the choices along the way that they think will get them there in one piece. And I know that some people think that these people should sacrifice themselves and let themselves be torn into pieces for the greater good, for the good of the collective, and so on and so forth. But I don't. I think it's up to the collective to save those people. That's the way it should go, not the other way around. I'm not here to sacrifice people. Those sacrifices are what I want to stop happening. And the last thing I'll say in this little ramble, and there was so much more I wanted to say, but the last thing I'll touch on is why I get so frustrated with this, and why I get so, frustrated. As a lefty, as a liberal, as a progressive, whatever the hell they're calling it this week in this fucking era, most of the people that I'm aligned with, I see them looking at the conservatives, conservative Christians, the Tea Partiers, the religious legalists, and such. And they've got their eye on them, and they can see the trouble that they're causing. And well, we know the trouble. I mean, we know what they talk. The language they talk is that language of religion. I mean, they'll talk about a person's ability to make a rational choice in a certain way that we're able to recognize as being bullshit and besides the point, and a personal code that brings them to a certain decision and should not be used for everyone else's decision. We say, if you're living your life by the Bible, fine, but other people don't have to. But to break it down, we'll hear conservative Christians say, for example, that some people aren't making rational choices, and the reason that they're not making rational choices is because perhaps Satan is tempting them, or Satan has hidden the right choice, or maybe it's even God who is testing you to see if you'll hold out for the right choice, or if you'll choose the right choice. They use that rhetoric of religion. And I don't see that as much different or any more scientifically proven than when social constructionist rhetoric is telling me that people are making irrational choices due to some of their choices being obscured or blocked off or disallowed by their society. We all know that it's about what's the most rational choice for the individual out of the choices that they have. And whether you're blaming Satan or social construction for people making irrational choices, it's still just based on your beliefs about what you would choose if you were in that same situation. The underlying goal is the same, to restrict the choice. And they'll use Satan or social construction, they'll use whatever they have to use, because it's the choice that they don't like. And they use it on prostitutes, they use it on homosexuals, they use it on anybody that they think has chosen to live an improper lifestyle, an irrational lifestyle. So take a look at your options, see how many you have. Can you withstand the test? Would they be able to use these arguments on you? Are you making a rational choice? If they painted us as possessed by the devil and said, we can't make choices because of that, we have to be restricted, we would call it out. But when they want to restrict us using the logic of social construction, most people don't complain. I don't know if they even see it. Most people are too busy watching a tea party.